everyone. Hopefully you guys can all hear me and see me okay. Welcome to our first birthday webinar of the year. Kaz and Blackstone have turned 2 years old today. It's kind of hard to believe, but they're definitely aging between this year and last year. There's definitely been a lot of kind of differences in their maturity. So hopefully we'll kind of touch on that a little bit during tonight's webinar. Yeah, I think I'll just go ahead and get started. We have a little bit of an agenda for tonight's webinar. But first we're going to talk about Kaz and Blackstone, kind of a little bit about their lives to this point, talk about their puphood, their time as yearlings, and kind of what they're doing now as 2-year-olds. We're also going to talk a little bit about current pack dynamics. So what's going on within the pack, especially this past couple of months, especially since our last webinar, if you were able to join it for that. And then we'll talk a little bit about some updates within the wolf care department. There's not too many updates, but it's good to keep you guys informed. We actually have a new addition here that we're excited to introduce you to. Then we'll be giving out a birthday enrichment. So pretty much a birthday cake, but wolf style. So very meat forward for that birthday cake. We'll be able to watch that on the live cameras and kind of interpret some of the behaviors that we're seeing. And then as we're doing that, we'll also answer some of your questions. So if you have any questions at any point during the webinar, please feel free to put them in the Q&A tab. That should be kind of at the bottom of your screen in the Zoom area. I see that there's a comment about some background noise. Let me try to get rid of that real quick. I don't want the ravens or the water dripping from outside to kind of be in the way. So let me quick turn off the sound for that. There we go. All right. So hopefully that kind of cleared up any of that background noise. I know that probably was not a very fun noise to hear. Cool. So we'll start off by talking a little bit about the pirates. So this is what we kind of affectionately called Kaz and Blackstone when we first got them here at the International Wolf Center. For those of you who aren't as familiar, we do adopt pups from other facilities. So we do not breed on site here for a variety of reasons. Kind of the main reason being that's not really our mission. That's not really our goal, to produce more pups for captivity. There are plenty of wolf pups out there that need homes from other captive facilities that do have a breeding pack. So we adopted Kaz and Blackstone from a facility here in Minnesota. We quickly nicknamed Blackstone Blackbeard because of that kind of darker undercolor kind of on the bottom of his chin there. It kind of reminded us of that classic pirate Blackbeard. And from that, we decided that Kaz needed a pirate nickname as well. So he was called Captain Kidd. And so those were our two kind of puppy nicknames for them. And then every year that we have pups, we do a kind of name the pup contest. And the names Blackstone and Kaz were the ones that were chosen. Blackstone was obviously, we kind of wanted to keep the names similar to their pup nicknames because that's what care staff are used to calling them, and that's kind of what they're used to hearing. Whether or not they actually recognize their names or not, that's kind of up for debate, but it just kind of makes things easier on our end if they're a little bit similar. So we wanted something that was similar to Blackbeard, so we picked Blackstone as one of the options that was voted upon. And the reason why is because there's actually a hiking trail around here called the Secret of Blackstone. And so that was kind of our reasoning behind that. And then Kaz means vigilant, and that's kind of the meaning behind that name. And it was very fitting for Captain Kidd as a pup. He was always kind of watching what the rest of the pack was up to through the fence and kind of what his brother was up to. So we thought that Kaz kind of fit him pretty well. So I'll kind of play a little bit of video here and narrate over it. So we adopted Kaz and Blackstone when they were a little bit older than we're used to. We tend to get our pups during that kind of neonate stage from 10 to 14 days of age. That's so that we can socialize them to get them used to care staff and get used to the facility. They came to us a little bit later in that stage. They were I believe, like around 30 days. So a little bit older on. Um, However, they still kind of seem to fit in right away. They kind of lived in this indoor area for the first week or so, just to make sure that they're doing okay. Um, Pups at that age are pretty vulnerable, especially when it comes to temperatures. They only have that undercoat, so that kind of brownish, grayish fur that you're seeing there. They don't have any guard hairs, and those guard hairs are really what helps them keep cool in the summer sun, and also kind of stay dry when it's rainy or snowy out. So they're living inside for a while, but of course we had them come out and meet the pack pretty early on. Sorry if the video is a little blurry. It clears up in a second here. So you can't really see what's going on, but that's me on the other side of the fence with Kaz and Blackstone, while Rika, Axel, and Grayson are greeting them from the outside. Make sure to have a lot of protective panels and everything in between. Chances are they probably wouldn't have any, negative interactions with them through the fence, but you can see how excited Rika is. She's pawing at the fence. She's really excited. Last thing we want is for a pup to kind of get pawed at too roughly or, pulled at the fence or anything like that. So we always take precautions when we're introducing through the fence like that. This is kind of another time that we were introducing through the fence. I think it's the next day, actually. So that's Blackstone walking right up to the panel there. Again, you can see a lot of different kind of protective paneling in place. Rika, very, very excited. She was only about a year old at this age, but even from this moment, we knew that she would be a really good kind of nurturing figure for young pups. She kind of showed all the signs that we wanted to see. She was regurgitating for them. She had a lot of kind of excess saliva. A lot of kind of the reasoning behind that is that they have kind of this big burst of hormones coming through their body that's being triggered by the presence of pups, and that's kind of showing itself in excessive saliva. So that was really interesting to see for me. I'd never really seen that before, so that was a really, really unique moment. And you can see how much the pups are engaging with them as well. They're right up at the fence. They're responding to Rika's whining. You see some tail wags there. You see them kind of actively seeking out the adults. Axel and Grayson equally as excited. There's Meters, our curator or past curator's dog, who was kind of helping raise these two pups, acting as kind of a dog surrogate for these two. But yeah, that's kind of exactly what we want to see. That's the level of excitement that we want. We don't want to see anything predatory, any stalking, anything like that. Kind of is a little bit of a warning sign that, hey, maybe we're not going to treat the pups quite as nurturing as we want, but this is exactly kind of the reaction that we were looking for. We think it's really important to kind of continue this socialization through the fence at an early age. We get a lot of questions on if the wolves will accept these pups because they're not related. And in our experience, we've been introducing non-related pups since the year 2000, and it's always been very, very successful. There's one instance that it wasn't quite as successful, but that was just one individual, and she kind of had other health issues as well going on during that time. We always start to kind of bring them outdoors as soon as we can, of course making sure that it's safe for them. If it's pouring rain, maybe we don't bring them out that day just to kind of reduce any risk of hypothermia or anything, but it's very important for them to get used to living outdoors because that's what they're going to be doing for the rest of their lives. So we have this area, we call it the wolf yard, but then whenever we have pups, it becomes the pup yard, and we usually get a big pile of sand brought in. We call that Moose Mountain. You'll probably see in some of the videos, there'll be a big moose skull that we have on there. Kind of the big purpose of having all of these different things in the yard, so the tree branches, the birch bark, the rocks, the bones, the sand, all of that is just to get them used to living in a more naturalistic environment. That's kind of what they're naturally used to, but if you don't expose that to them during this kind of critical socialization period, then there may be moments where they're a little bit more focused on their environment rather than on other important things that they should be focusing on, like the rest of the pack. So you'll see lots of different kind of things all around the yard during these clips. At this age, they're all already starting to practice dominance. So some of this is a little bit more social. There's Blackstone doing a little bit of a standover. That's kind of a classic Blackstone move. That's a pretty common thing that we see him doing even to this day. And then that's Kaz kind of biting up at him, doing some inhibited biting. So even at this early of an age, when they're kind of practicing that dominance, that's preparing them for these interactions in the future. That's kind of helping them get used to interacting with the adults in this manner as well. Definitely they're a little too small to be interacting with the adults in this manner, at least at this age, but it's good to kind of keep that going. So we really encourage them to kind of interact with each other like wolves do. So you'll see there's someone sitting behind them. We have care staff watching them 24/7 from the moment that they arrive on site to the moment that they go in the exhibit pack, and then even a week or two after that. There's 24/7 monitoring of the pups to make sure that they're doing okay. Wolves are really, really hardy. You know, they're really resilient in a lot of ways, but this is kind of one of the more fragile periods of their lives. So it's really important for us to be able to kind of provide them with as much care as we possibly can. This is kind of an example of that. So this is a little bit of a water feature that we came up with by sticking a hose in the back of the skull there. Let me pause the video quick. Oh, whoops. I skipped ahead a little bit too much. But that skull and that water is going to help kind of cool them off during those warmer days when they're feeling a little bit too hot. You know, walking through that water is going to help cool them off pretty well. So we always try to encourage them to get their feet wet, kind of encourage them to get their bellies wet, because that's going to help them cool off pretty quick. And here's a short video of some more kind of social bonding within the pack. I'll move the camera on there. Howling, chorus howling with the adult wolves is really important to kind of help encourage those social bonds. I'll just kind of let it play so you guys can hear it a bit. So yeah, it's really fun to hear those pups howling. That you hear that kind of squeakiness to their voice. We'll talk about it in a little bit as well. But you can just see how quickly they're growing at this stage. Really, really long, lanky legs, even from a young age. Kind of a classic wolf feature. And then that darker kind of guard hairs that you see grow in, those are going to help kind of protect the undercoat from the elements. So that's kind of our sign that they're ready to start moving outdoors a little bit more and sleeping outdoors. We still have this open space that's kind of indoors for them. But as you can see, they can kind of get up to a little bit of mischief. Kaz has a pencil there, and Blackstone is trying to steal one out of a cup there. So sometimes those longer limbs are a little bit more of a hazard for us than anything. And then I wanted to pause on this because, yes, it's, you know, Blackstone sniffing the camera. That's always fun to see. But also you can start to see their eye colors changing as well. All pups are born with blue eyes, and that kind of fades away as they start to mature, and it starts to turn into their kind of adult coloration. So for Kaz and Blackstone, their adult coloration was more of kind of a yellowy kind of gold color. That's pretty common for wolves. There's also been wolves with, you know, kind of like a greenish color, grayish color, sometimes like a light brown or an amber color. It's really rare to see a blue-eyed wolf. There have been some documented, but it's very not common, especially for wolves in the wild. So just wanted to point that out because that's kind of a cool transitionary color that you see in that iris. We still encourage a lot of fence-to-fence time between the adults and the pups. This is, you know, daily. They have access to the adults daily so that they can greet each other. You can hear Rika whining in the background. Blackstone's tail is really whipping up a storm there. Kaz is a little bit more investigatory. He's kind of sniffing around, but you'll see in a little bit he kind of starts interacting a bit with Rika through the fence as well. Starts wagging his tail as well. This is when we started to see some more differences between Kaz and Blackstone. You can see Blackstone was a little bit more kind of lanky. whereas Kaz is a little bit more like stocky. You know, he kind of has a wider stance there, a wider body, whereas Blackstone's a little bit leaner, but a little bit taller. And even to this day, that's kind of what we still see. We always think that Kaz weighs a bit more, but Blackstone's actually the biggest wolf that we currently have in our pack. He's about 115 pounds, whereas Kaz is about 100 pounds. So this is a short clip of introduction day, so you can kind of see that excitement that those pups have. Grayson and Axel also pretty excited, Rika excited, but a little bit more on the receiving end of the excitement. That's pretty typical for an introduction day. Usually there's lots of running around, lots of chasing after each other, lots of excitement, but generally it kind of starts to calm down a bit. So there you see Blackstone coming down the hill. Rika had just gone inside the den, and Kaz is going to chase her right out. So it's pretty common for lots of these dynamics, or sorry, lots of these relationships to start being built pretty early on during the introduction period. So this is, I believe, just a few days after being introduced. You see kind of this trio start to emerge of Rika, Kaz, and Blackstone. That's Kaz, kind of right next to Rika, who's guarding a piece of a bison hide, I believe. And then Blackstone's kind of playing with his brother's feet, kind of biting at them a little bit. And this is exactly what we wanted to see, you know, kind of this calm interactions between them, this kind of social moment. Yes, she's kind of guarding a little bit, but it's still very calm, very mellow. And those are really important boundaries that she's setting. Definitely Kaz likes to push these boundaries a lot, especially when it comes to food. So it's always, you know, we always try to encourage whenever we see any of the other wolves successfully guarding something from Kaz. That's always kind of nice to see. So they grow still pretty fast, even after they've been introduced to the exhibit. They get introduced at around 3 months of age or around 30 pounds, but they double in size very, very quickly. So this is going into fall. You can start to see kind of that thick undercoat starting to be more present on their bodies. They look a little bit more adult-like, kind of more what they look like today even. Generally, they'll stop growing at around 18 months of age. That's when their skeleton stops growing, but they'll still kind of be adding on muscle mass and adding on kind of maturing more than just skeletal growth as well. But this is kind of the interactions that we were excited to see. You know, definitely introducing Kaz and Blackstone. We typically don't do pups the year after pups, so we usually wait 4 years between introducing new pups. But because Rika was a singleton, because she didn't have any siblings, we thought it was really important to kind of bring in some more wolves that kind of matched her energy levels, her maturity levels. Axel and Grayson were about, I think they were 7 at this time. Yeah, because they'll be turning 8 this spring. So they're, you know, a little bit more on the mature side. They're not quite as engaged in, you know, social play quite as much, but you'll see it come out every once in a while. Such as in this clip, you can see Grayson with that high tail, pretty excited. So this is kind of another example of a pack howl. So listen to the distinct differences between the adults and Kaz and Blackstone. You hear a lot of really like high-pitched, squeaky, missy yippy at times, whereas the adults have much more kind of a long, kind of a lower tone in their howl. And of course, Kaz has to come say hi. So again, that's just building social bonds right there. It could have been a variety of reasons why they started howling. It could have been a siren, could have been another wolf that they heard. But overall, howling together as a pack like that and rallying together during that howl is a great sign for a nice cohesive pack. So this was their first snowfall, so their first kind of sign of winter. They never experienced snow before, so this was kind of a fun moment to watch. Um, I believe this was kind of early October, so we weren't quite expecting snow yet, and I believe it didn't stick around too long. But you can see that the leaves around the pond are still kind of turning. So a little bit of an early snowfall. That's why the pond is still full. Usually we do drain the pond. Um, Here we have their kind of post-neutering reintroduction. So we did neuter Kaz and Blackstone at 6 months of age. You can see their reintroduction after that went really well. Nothing too crazy. They jumped right back into it. Kind of continued their classic Kaz and Blackstone social behaviors of chasing each other, lots of play behavior, some dominance dynamics in there as well. You can see how Blackstone kind of went around Axel. Axel tended to be a little bit more, or sorry, a little bit less tolerant of Kaz and Blackstone than, say, Grayson was. So they kind of picked up on that pretty quick and knew not to kind of be in his way. Although Axel does kind of join in their shenanigans every once in a while. So you can start to hear the growling a little bit. That was likely because they started going over that deer leg. You can see a little bit of food guarding behaviors come out. Grayson kind of coming over to tell him to quit it, knock it off. They're being a little bit too rowdy in Grayson's eyes. Rika kind of circling around. That was another thing that we noticed with Kaz and Kaz and Blackstone's arrival. Rika was really defensive of them, and any sort of discipline or corrections from Grayson to the yearlings, specifically from Grayson to Kaz, would usually result in Rika kind of grabbing at Grayson's rear. So that was really interesting for us to see. It kind of made us think maybe he's kind of having a little bit of a social alliance with Kaz in some ways, kind of protecting him from those corrections. There's Blackstone doing his classic standover to Kaz. I don't know if you guys can hear it too well on your side, but there's some chainsaws going off in the background, so that's kind of why he's perked up, kind of looking around, ears pricked. But yeah, that's pretty classic Blackstone behavior there, is that standover. We'll see that even to this day, especially if one of the other wolves is in a compromised position. He takes advantage of that pretty quickly. This was last year on this day, a little bit snowier than it is today. And we gave them another little birthday cake made out of various meats. I believe there was a duck feather kind of sticking out of the top of that as well. Yeah, you can just see how windy and snowy it is on that day compared to today, which is nice and sunny, and I think it hit probably mid-40s at least. And we also started to notice quite a bit of personality differences between Kaz and Blackstone. Especially with Blackstone being pretty relaxed. He's the pretty kind of mellow, kind of goofy at times. We'll talk a little bit about that later as well, but this is their first spring as yearlings. So every year we kind of bring in a big pile of sand. That's to help kind of keep them cool, give them something to kind of dig in, lay on that's cooler than, you know, the middle of the woods. However, we were still having issues with bugs. So we did open up the kennel area, the same area that was a spot for the pups when they were very young. And we kind of put this yellow industrial fan, so you can kind of see that behind the bars there. So that's blowing out. So it's blowing all the bugs out of the building, you know, not letting them fly in. And Blackstone thought that was pretty cool. So I just wanted to show this because this is pretty classic Blackstone kind of personality coming out. I always knew that there was, you know, different personalities, distinct personalities with wolves, but these two kind of really, you know, hammered that in to my knowledge that, you know, wolves are very unique individuals. Another way that we kind of help the wolves out is to, have a pond feature like this. Allows them to cool off, especially in the summer months when it's really hot. So there's Kaz and Blackstone kind of swimming around. They did quite a bit of swimming when they were first introduced as well. They seem to be a lot more comfortable in the water than, say, Axel or Grayson are. But sometimes we do encourage them to go in the pond using enrichments, so ice cube enrichments or anything that really floats. It just helps them get in the water, get wet, cool off a little bit. So like I said, we kind of saw this trio forming of Kaz, Blackstone, and Rika, but we started to see a little bit more intensity in their interactions last summer, or sorry, this past summer. So there you're seeing Blackstone kind of be a little bit more assertive with Kaz, but Rika is also being a lot more focused on Blackstone. So that kind of that following, the head down, hackles are up, Blackstone kind of starting to back up again a little bit, but then some kind of guarding behavior towards Kaz there. You may also notice Kaz has kind of a wound on his side. That was some pine pitch that stuck to his fur that he ripped out. It ended up being, oh, that's a little loud. It ended up being a little bit of a side wound. There's not much we can do for that, unfortunately. If we try to stitch it up or something, he's just going to rip the stitches out and make it worse. So the best we can do is keep it clean, put antibiotics on it, make sure he's doing okay, make sure the rest of the pack isn't focused on it, which thankfully it didn't look like they were. So that actually healed up really quickly, pretty much on its own, which is kind of a testament to the resiliency of wolves. Another thing that we do in the summertime is snow enrichments. So we collect snow during the winter months and save that. On the 4th of July, we do a red, white, and blue snow using some Gatorade, and Kaz and Blackstone just thought that was the coolest thing they've ever seen. So I thought I'd include this in there as well because this is kind of an important milestone for them. They seem to really start to feel more comfortable in the exhibit, start engaging with more and more of the enrichments, and start to kind of engage more as a holistic pack. So not just the trio, not just Kaz, Blackstone, and Rika, but Grayson and Axel getting in there as well. Again, this is exactly what we were hoping for when we decided to introduce more pups after Rika. We wanted her to have some more individuals in the pack that she could kind of interact with, so that she wasn't just hanging out with Grayson and Axel. Their energy levels match up a little bit more, maturity-wise, they match up a bit more. And when we started to see a lot of social bonding between, especially Rika and Kaz. There's moments where Blackstone will also have, some nice social moments with her as well, but it seems that these two kind of had a little bit more of a social relationship, a little bit more of an alliance. So this was kind of late fall going into winter. Pretty snuggled up there. Start of winter breeding season, hormones probably taking place. So yeah, that was really fun to see. Of course, we started to see that with Grayson a little bit as well, between Grayson and Rika. So it wasn't just Kaz, but between the two brothers, between Kaz and Blackstone, she seems to really kind of gravitate more towards Kaz. Grayson definitely started to emerge as more of a leader, especially in the eyes of Kaz and Blackstone. You can just see how much they revere him, how much they respect him, look up to him. Rika and Axel don't always agree with that assessment, but in the eyes of the 2-year-olds, they very much see Grayson as their pack leader. So that's been kind of a fun thing to watch develop this past year. There's Blackstone during his, I believe this is again a kind of an early snowfall. You can see kind of that greenery still present. I don't think this stuck around long. Those of you who live in this area know that we didn't really have much of a winter. It was really warm. We didn't have a lot of snow. And that kind of led to a pretty calm not very much going on within the pack, which is good. I'm happy about that, but lack of snow is definitely a change. Um, we started to see Grayson step up quite a bit more, doing a lot more posturing, especially over Kaz. So there'd be times where Kaz is just off minding his own business, doing his own thing, and Grayson would run over and start to posture over him. So kind of do this little stand over to him with a high tail, kind of these quick, sharp movements, kind of telling him, hey, quit it, kind of submit to me type thing. And Kaz is always very, very submissive towards Grayson, which is great for us. We think that the longer that they remain submissive to Grayson and Axel, that just means the longer that Axel and Grayson can stay in the exhibit pack. So that's something that we'll be watching for this coming winter, is any challenges between the 2-year-olds and the 8-year-olds. We did continue to kind of see Blackstone fall into this kind of lower ranking Omega role. He kind of has a bit more of a playful energy about him most times, but a lot of times that turns into moments like this where the rest of the pack kind of focuses on him. It used to just be kind of Rika focusing on him, with Kaz getting in there whenever he saw the opportunity, but we started to see Grayson and Axel kind of join in that a little bit more as well. And Blackstone kind of coming to be that lower ranking individual, which I believe is going to kind of lead us into today. So this kind of snowfall that you saw was our last big snowfall of the season, and I think our only big snowfall of the season, which was just last month. And so this was kind of a increase in activity, increase in dominance, that this kind of colder, snowy temperature brought. So there's Grayson sitting up on the greeting rock, and Blackstone kind of back a little bit on a couple of rocks just behind the greeting rock. Overall, still pretty calm, but like I said, this kind of arrival of snow and cold brought with it a little bit more tensions. I believe the next clip kind of shows that off a little bit better, with the pack kind of focusing a little bit on Blackstone again. So I don't think Axel's in that clip, but I think he's in one of these next coming clips. But you'll see how Axel's doing as well in those ones. So there's Rika kind of pulling at Blackstone's tail, kind of pulling him off the rock a little bit. This amount of focus is, a little bit more than we had seen earlier in the winter, but you can kind of see it's not really escalating too much. Things still are pretty calm. She's not focused on him to the point of, he's not able to get up or not able to kind of take a break, and that lets us know that, this is a pretty mild interaction between them. As soon as other wolves get involved, and as soon as he starts being overwhelmed to the point of not being able to get up, that's when we would step in. However, we do like to see those dynamics kind of play out, because it's really important for the pack to be able to settle that themselves. So this is just this past week. This was on the 3rd, so just a few days ago. You can see Kaz kind of coming up. The rest of the pack is resting on top of the den there. Kaz very, very submissive. You can see his ears down, his tail wagging. Notice how he's only kind of doing that appeasement, muzzle-licking behavior to Grayson. He doesn't come up to Rika. He doesn't come up to Axel. He's seeking out Grayson's approval there. Blackstone laying on his back, kind of pawing up at Grayson. Axel's kind of laying off to the left there, while Kaz kind of continues to do a little bit of appeasement behaviors towards Grayson. Axel's been doing pretty good. I know in the last webinar we mentioned that, well, we're taking a break for medications for him for now, just kind of let his system kind of reset. And he seems to be doing pretty well on that big change. His scats have been looking a lot more healthy, a lot more formed. His energy and his attitude seem to kind of be coming back a little bit. In fact, yesterday I read that they were when they're feeding out chicken, he was like jumping up and pawing at the bowl and doing things that he hasn't done for a long time. So that's been great to hear that he's kind of feeling a bit more like himself lately. And you can see he's still very actively engaged with the pack. He's resting with them. Um, he's engaging in some of those social dynamic moments as well. There'll be times where he still kind of goes off and lays on his own, but he's always kind of been like that. And there'll be times where the other wolves do that as well. Sometimes they just need a little bit of break from the pack dynamics, but skip ahead to the next video here. Yeah, so this is a little bit later on in that same kind of clip, that same day. There's Grayson kind of resting his head on top of Rika there. Again, a little bit of social interactions between them this past winter has gone a long way. Um, I don't know if it's because Axel's been feeling maybe a little less like himself, where Grayson feels a lot more confident because of that. There's always been a little bit of Arctic tension between Axel and Grayson, but now that Grayson's feeling nice and confident, he seems to kind of be more assertive with Rika, which seems to be working out pretty well for him. Now in this past day or two, we've had some pretty warm weathers hitting, 50s, 40s. I think we're gonna have 60 degrees by the end of the week, or by the end of next week, I should say. And because of that, we have a lot of kind of these vernal pools, these kind of seasonal ponds start to form within the exhibit. So there you see Blackstone kind of checking out what's in the pond, what's in the spring melt. Lots of fun stuff that had been underneath the snow for a long time is now surfacing. So, we think it kind of smells weird and not so great, but he thinks it's the coolest thing ever. So that's been fun to watch them kind of interact with their environment around there. Those vernal pools are super important for all sorts of wildlife, for habitat and for hydration, but um, at least in our exhibit, it's um, more of a kind of mini pond before the official pond in the summer. There's Kaz. This is a video from this morning. He's kind of jumping up at the tree branches there. We weren't sure if there's a squirrel up there or if he just saw the branches move from some of that snow melt. You can kind of see some of that dripping coming off the roof line there. But yeah, overall, very, very calm pack. I should like knock on wood as I say that, and hopefully it'll stay the case. You can see a little bit of that kind of dominance, that kind of confidence from Grayson to Kaz. They walk off in a little bit of a parallel gait there. Definitely lots of social moments between them too, not just confidence or posturing or anything like that. So that's kind of what the pack's been up to. Hopefully that kind of covered most of everything. If you guys have any questions about that in particular, feel free to put that in the Q&A. I'd be happy to answer any of those questions as well. But now I'm going to talk a little bit about some of our wolf care department updates. So we did have some tree removal from the local college here. They come at least once a year and do a big crew comes in and they help take down a bunch of problem trees that are either rotted, that are a hazard to the wolves and to the fence line, trees that are growing through the fences that again could be an issue in the future. um, you know you have seen our exhibit. We have a very nice wooded enclosure, and we try to keep it nice and wooded, but we also have to prioritize the safety of the wolves and kind of the integrity of the fence. So they came out, they did a fantastic job. I think they took over 15 trees, really, really big trees, some smaller, and then a handful of really small diameter, like balsams and things like that. And then they burned it right here on site. So it's a great way to kind of get rid of some of that excess fuel that would be sitting in the enclosure. Definitely with kind of a drier winter. We are potentially going to have some issues this coming summer when it comes to wildfires. So it's been a project for us to make sure that our fire breaks are all working, and up to date and kind of keeping everything with the least amount of fuel as possible so that if we do have any fire issues, we can hopefully keep the enclosure untouched. But yeah, so it's been a lot of kind of preparation for the summer. You guys know that, or most of you probably know that Lori Schmidt, our curator of, 30 some years, has officially retired as of last week. Um, we're really sad to see her go, but she's still gonna be volunteering. She's still gonna be consulting when we need her. So she's still definitely gonna be around. But with kind of her leaving, we still wanted to keep a decent, amount of staff within the wolf care department. So it's Giselle, our current curator, myself. Sorry, I never introduced myself. I'm Abby, I'm the assistant curator, and then our wolf care specialist. So we just hired a wonderful person by the name of Lexi Ham. She has interned here 2 times before. So we kind of know her. She knows the facility. She's had some excellent experience outside of the Wolf Care Center. Outside of the International Wolf Center as well. So I'll kind of let her give a little bit of spiel and introduce herself so you guys can get used to her voice and seeing her. And yeah, so hello, Lexi, welcome.
Hello, thank you. Hi, everybody. Like Abby said, I'm Lexi. I am the new wolf care specialist. I'm very happy to be here. As she mentioned, I was an intern at the International Wolf Center twice, so maybe I might have seen some of you guys here at the center or even online, doing a lot of different, webinars and things like that in the education department. But after kind of leaving here after my internships, I traveled to Indiana and Alaska and even New Mexico to get some different wolf-based jobs. So I've kind of been building up some experience and am now very happy to be back and a part of the wolf care team. So very grateful and just happy to be here. And yeah, I think that's all I got.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, we're so pumped to have her here. It's just been a blast. She's been such a positive energy in the office. So we're really excited to kind of see how things go. So I think we're pretty much ready for our main event of the evening, our birthday enrichment. So every year we try to give them a little special treat. We call it a birthday cake. It's not really a birthday cake. This year it's a big pork of ham. A big slab of ham with some pork sausage and some brats stuck in there. It is also International Beaver Day tomorrow, so we have some beaver feet and a beaver tail sticking out of there as well. And then some venison cakes, which are just like dehydrated venison treats as well. Um, so yeah, that's kind of the plan. Well, we have it set out in our our pack holding area right now. So I'll pull that up so that you guys can see it okay. So it's right there on top of the rock, and then we will let our wolves in so that you can kind of see them interact with it. And while I kind of interpret some of those behaviors, we may kind of answer some of your questions as well. So let me just let them know that they can open up the gate. And hopefully we see some wolf action soon. I'll turn this over here. Hopefully they come down is the first challenge. I might actually go out and kind of call them down just so we have that all ready to go. Oh, never mind. They're getting it ready right now. So those of you who don't know, we will also be live streaming this on our Facebook page. So if you'd like a different perspective of it later on, you can always go back and watch that as well. Or you can continue to be signed in here so we can talk about questions and things as well. Right now the wolves are kind of sleeping up on the hill. You can kind of see them. They kind of just look like a pile of snow, but I promise those are wolves. But also on our Facebook, we are doing a birthday webinar. So that is for Kaz and Blackstone's birthday. It's raising money for the wolf care team and wolf care department. A little bit goes a long way. So anything you guys are willing to offer would be fantastic. That's one of our wolf care staff trying to get them up, trying to kind of encourage them to come on over. And there you see Rika coming on in. Kaz and Blackstone and Grayson shortly behind them. I think Axel's probably making his way over as well. All right, I'll switch over to the pack holding area camera and hopefully we see some wolves. There's Blackstone coming up to check it out first. Kaz, always the more food possessive one, probably will be the first to actually make an actual move, but looks like the two birthday boys are the first on the scene, so that's good to see. Rika's joining in, Grayson going to see what it's all about. Looks like Blackstone's taking the whole thing to go. We're probably gonna see a little bit of food possession, food dominance between these two. There's Axel there as well, joining in. So it looks like they kind of disassembled it a little bit. Blackstone has the topper with the beaver tail. And down there is the the remaining piece. Looks like Rika's gonna try to help herself to that a little bit. Cool. Well, I'll just kind of keep trailing the cameras around them, and we can start kind of answering any of your questions that you have. Lexi will read them out for me just so I don't have to kind of scroll through the Q&A quite as much. I can kind of keep my focus on moving cameras around, hopefully.
Right, sounds good. So we have quite a few.
Awesome.
The first here we have, since wolves are not neutered in the wild, does
Mhm.
neutering in captivity change the wolf behaviors in the pack?
That is a great question. Um, to some extent, it does have an influence. They're gonna have just maybe like a little less intensity, I would say, of interactions overall. Um, but they're still gonna have kind of the generic increase of testosterone or estrogen or whatever hormones are being produced. A lot of those are produced in the brain, not just in the sex organs. So even though you're taking out the testicles, you're neutering the animal or you're spaying the animal, you're still going to have all of those hormones being produced, maybe just not to the same extent. Um, so in our experience, it's been a little bit more kind of mild in terms of behavior, a little less intense than it is in intact individuals. Um, but there's been facilities that have been able to manage, intact males and females just fine. Um, but just in our experience, since we're not a breeding facility, that's just the best way for us to kind of tackle that issue. But yeah, great question.
Definitely. I like this one too. So, when you say step in, what is all involved? Kind of talking back to that interaction video you had. So, is the
Yeah.
staff in danger in that case with the wolves all
Mm.
excited? And also a thank you for doing the webinar.
Absolutely. Thanks you for joining. Um, yeah, that's a really, really great question. So when I say step in, what we typically do is start by distracting. So we'll do things like go grab some, beaver tails from the freezer, or we'll, shake a can of kibble, or, try to call them over. Just kind of distract them from that situation so that things are a little less focused on that one individual. We don't have to do that too often. Thankfully, this pack is very cohesive. We haven't really had any major kind of interactions between wolves that have made us worry. But there are times where, they'll be focused on Blackstone a little bit and we'll just have to go out and call them over, or we have several dogs on site as well that are a really, really useful tool if we ever need to break something up. Um, a lot of times you bring a dog out and they all look right at the dog and they stop looking at each other, so that works. There's been very, very few times where we've actually had to physically intervene. I personally have never had to do it, but our ex-curator Lori has had to step in at times, and she has a bite stick and has to kind of try to get them to bite that rather than bite each other. And that would only be if it's like a life and death situation, which is very, very rare. I believe Lori said in her, 35 years of experience, she's ever really seen 4 or 5 wolf fights that actually could have resulted in injury or did result in injury. Generally, it's just kind of it's just dominance. It's just, wolf dynamics. That's just kind of how they interact with each other, and that's how they maintain um, kind of a cohesive pack unit. Um, there's actually a theory that, they have all these kind of little bits of these little moments of ritualized dominance that overall reduce major conflict. So instead of like, letting the tensions build and kind of building up these negative dynamics between them just for it to result in like one big blowout or one big fight. Instead, they have these little moments of ritualized dominance that kind of, make sure that each wolf kind of knows where they are within the rank order. So that's kind of the theory as to why that happens. But yeah, we never really, well, I shouldn't say never, but we very rarely ever have to physically intervene. And at that point, it's a very much a judgment call on our, you know, um, our responsibility is just to make sure that they're safe. So if it ever becomes a situation where we think that they're not safe, that would probably be where we would step in. But like I said, they're pretty used to interacting with each other in that type of way. So yeah.
Gotta find the unmute button. So we have a question here about Axel's meds, kind of just asking like,
Mhm.
was it a gradual process or more cold turkey?
That's a really good question. Yeah. So um we decided it was going to be like a cold turkey, just stop after that day. But he had decided weeks before that it was going to be a gradual process. So he had just kind of slowly stopped taking meds, or he would take half of them one day and then not take any the next day and then take all of them the next day. So it was kind of his decision to kind of wean himself off of those meds first. And then we decided, you know what? He's really not reliably taking them. He seems like he's, feeling a bit better, that he's not really reliably taking them. So that's when we decided, all right, let's give him a break, kind of let his body reset a little. Especially going into the summer, you don't really need a really thick full coat in the summer. Bugs might be something that we're kind of concerned about. Just making sure that he's not, getting overloaded by the flies or the mosquitoes, but they are on a flea and tick preventative, so it's just kind of making sure that those biting insects don't really bug him too much. But it should be, kind of nice to give him the summer as a break, and then we'll kind of see what our plan is in the fall. Likely probably starting him back up on those medications, maybe at a lower dosage.
Okay. Um, let's see. Someone said, looks like Grayson and Axel are very comfortable going into the back holding area. Has
Hmm.
Grayson lost his hesitation towards entering the area?
So that's a really good question. Those of you who maybe aren't as familiar with kind of what the Wolves have been doing in the past, um, Axel and Grayson used to not really be too interested in coming in this area, which is the pack holding area. That's part of our kind of retirement compound. So we have several kind of areas that we are able to lock off wolves for if they're, no longer part of the pack, or if there is like a medical reason that they would be kind of excluded from the pack. And this pack holding area, they were never really too interested in, mostly because Grizzler used to live here. Grizzler was our 17-and-a-half-year-old wolf that passed away, I think 2 years ago now. And before that, they hadn't really come in pack holding all that often, unless it was for being held off for tree work or, other enclosure maintenance. So they never really had a super positive interactions with the pack holding area. But now that Grizzly has passed away, we've been letting them in this pack holding area every single morning. So that's a really great way to kind of get them used to this space and get them used to coming in and not having it be a big issue or a big deal. It's just another part of the day. So Kaz, Blackstone, and Rika have never had an issue coming in. They seem to enjoy it. Because that's where they were when they were pups. That's kind of been their what they grew up knowing. So they come in and they get weighed every day, but Axel and Grayson are a little less willing to go in onto the scale and get weighed. So they mostly just come in, just kind of check things out, smell around, usually do some marking, some defecating or urinating. It looks like Grayson's looking for a spot to urinate right now. Um, and that's been a really great way to kind of get them used to coming and going out of the space so that when they are retired, hopefully they'll be a little bit more comfortable in this area.
Awesome. Here we have, it seems you only have one female. Is that for a reason?
Yeah, that's a really good question too. Um, so generally, and I say generally because this is, can be very different at other facilities too. This has just been in our experience. Multiple females tend not to get along quite as well as multiple males. So it's been recommended to us by other wolf facilities and just, again, based off of our past experience, that we only have one female at a time. Um, Again, other facilities have done it and it works great. I'm not saying that it can't be done because it absolutely can, but a lot of it depends on the personality of the wolf. Um, and there's this kind of ongoing theory that um, female wolves seem to be more kind of in control or more domineering within their own pack, whereas male wolves seem to be more kind of in charge of external wolves. So if there's a intruder, on their territory or something, that seems to be more of kind of the male wolf duty to kind of take charge and chase them out, whereas the females are a little bit more in charge of, inter pack dynamics. So that's kind of one guess that we as humans have as to why females tend to kind of not get along quite as well in captivity. Like I said, it can work. It just depends on the individual. Knowing Rika, she probably wouldn't be too keen on another female. We've seen how she interacts with the other female dogs that have kind of walked through the wolf yard. And she's a little less, or sorry, a little bit more kind of intense with them than she is with the male dogs. She seems to kind of wag her tail a bit more at the male dogs, whereas with the female dogs, she tends to be a little bit more kind of stalking of them and kind of staring at them, a little less, or sorry, a little more intense in her interactions. So we're probably not going to get another female anytime soon, anytime that she's still in the exhibit. Um, that could change. I mean, that's just kind of been our experience going forward. So there you can see one of our care staff kind of giving Rika a little bit of a scratch, keeping her comfortable, keeping her from jumping up during our kind of Facebook Live session that's going on there. Oh, you're muted, Lexi. Lexi.
I was muted.
No, you're fine.
Sorry about
You're
that.
fine.
So questions here that kind of go along with what you were saying.
Yeah.
So nothing more definite on pair bonding with Rika. And then kind of since Axel and Grayson are getting older and kind of more towards a traditional retirement age, is it likely she's going to pair bond with Blackstone or Kaz?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We've seen it both ways where there's been wolves that have been um a little bit younger and they still paired bond with kind of the more mature individuals. It seems to be a lot based on um personality, but also based on just kind of the leadership of the wolf. So I don't see Kaz or Blackstone as showing any of those leadership qualities at this age. They're still very young. They're still considered, I mean, they're maturing. Usually 2 to 3 years of age is when they're considered mature. But it's a sliding scale. You can't say they, turn 2 and they're officially mature. So they still exhibit a lot of that kind of juvenile behavior. I mean, you saw that clip of Kaz jumping up at the tree. That's a pretty kind of young wolf thing to do. Um, Whereas, wolf like Grayson, for example, he shows a lot more of those leadership qualities. So there's been times where we've seen younger wolves kind of pair bond with that older, more kind of leader-esque wolf. Um, and then there's been times where we've seen that bond kind of go away and they bond with a younger wolf. As that other wolf starts to mature and starts to kind of show those leadership qualities and even challenges the current pack leader. So right now, yeah, it doesn't seem like Rika has any specific um wolf in mind that she's, looking to pair bond with if she ever pair bonds. Um Sorry, I keep switching back between the two to see what Rika's doing. Um but it seems like her and Grayson have had a lot more social interactions than they ever have before this past winter. So I'm kind of guessing that'll be kind of how it plays out. Is Rika and Grayson kind of take the lead a little bit more. Um, we are hoping to get pups next year. That's still kind of a work in progress. Obviously, you can't really predict when pups are going to be born or if they're going to be born, but we're hoping to adopt pups next year, likely from the same facility that Kaz and Blackstone were born, but it all just kind of depends on, how that works out. So it would be 2 males if we do end up getting pups. We're hoping for maybe a black color phase. We always think that's always fun to kind of include in the pack. It's a great talking point, an educational point for visitors to be able to show, there's a wide variety of colorations and coat color for wolves. But cool. Well, I think we're pretty much at time. Thank you all for your questions. I know we had a lot of really great ones still waiting, but hopefully, I can kind of ask some of those, or sorry, answer some of those, in the future. If you join our next birthday webinars, feel free to bring those questions with you. We'll be doing another free birthday webinar for Axel and Grayson on their birthday, which is May 2nd, I believe. And then another free webinar for Rika on her birthday, so May 23rd. So they're kind of spaced out about a month apart. The current birthday fundraiser that we're doing for Kaz and Blackstone, like I said, you can find that on our Facebook page. That will be going on until April 15th. So you have a little bit of time to go check it out. If you're still curious about, who we are, if you're new to this whole International Wolf Center world, please check us out on our website. There's a lot of really great wolf information there, and that is just wolf.org. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed our webinar. It looks like Kaz is enjoying his part in the webinar. I think he is probably having the most fun out of all of us here. And I hope that you guys join us for our next birthday webinar on the 2nd. So thank you guys so much, and have a great night.